Hi, David.
Hi, Nadira.
Can you please help us understand what is risk maturity and how can it be sustained?
Risk maturity refers to the degree of our capability in managing risk effectively. So maturity is, you have a child, it becomes a teenager, becomes a young adult, becomes an older person, and during that period they are maturing. They're getting older, but they're also getting wiser, and they're getting more able, more competent. And the same is true in risk management maturity, that we're getting older because we're doing it for longer and longer, but hopefully we're also getting wiser in making good choices and good decisions, and we're getting more able and more competent to do it better as we go along. We're learning from our experience. So a risk mature organization, or an organization with a mature risk management capability, is one that is able to manage risk more effectively than one which is less mature. So how do we measure risk management maturity? There are different models, different frameworks available in the industry that have been developed. I developed a model in the early 1990s, actually. It was the first risk management maturity model that had been seen. And it was based on the idea that there are 4 contributors to the ability to manage risk effectively. The first, and perhaps the most important, is culture. What we believe, what are our values about risk management? How do we implement or execute or work out those values in practice? So culture is the shared values and beliefs of a group or organization about something. And risk culture is the shared values and beliefs of an organization about risk. And having a mature risk culture is about understanding that risk has value, that management of risk is important, that it contributes to our success, it's a core activity, it's not something optional that should be added on as a last thing. Yes. An immature risk culture says it doesn't really matter, we'll deal with things when they come up, we can cope, we're an organization that's professional and so on. We don't need risk management. That's an immature risk culture. So the first contributor to an effective ability to manage risk is the way that we think about it. That's the risk culture. The second thing which contributes to managing risk effectively is process. Clearly, we need to have processes which are efficient and which are effective, which work in practice. And organizations which are risk mature will have well-developed processes which are adaptive to different situations, which work in different settings, which work across the organization from projects and operations through functions and departments right the way up to the top strategic forums of the organization. An immature risk organization will have either no risk processes at all, or processes which are just copied from a book and they don't really work in practice. So we can look at the processes, the way that we do risk management in practice. So we've got the way we think about risk in culture, we've got the processes which support our implementation of risk, culture and processes. The third contributor to risk management capability is experience. We need to have good people who know what they're doing, who have the skills and the knowledge and the understanding to actually implement the processes in order to manage risk effectively. And so that means having people with risk management credentials, people having risk management understanding, risk management training. It also means having a learning organization where we're consistently improving the way that we learn from our previous experience and manage risk throughout the organization. So we've got the way we think about risk, the processes that support us in managing risk, and then the people who actually do risk management. And then the fourth contributor to risk maturity, in addition to culture, process, and experience, is the application. We actually have to be able to do it well. And that means applying risk in the right context, in the right way, having a flexible approach which is scalable and tailored to the particular setting that we're trying to manage risk in. It's about understanding that risk management is not just for technical settings or for projects or for operations, but it's applied right across the business. We're using risk information to make risk-based decisions. We're actually applying risk management to help us manage the uncertainties that matter. So the four contributors to risk maturity, culture, the way we think, process, the way we support risk management, experience, the people who are doing it, and application, actually using it in practice, are how we build maturity in an organization. Now, it's important to be risk mature to have all of those four things equally operational, an equal emphasis on all of those four things. Sometimes you find organizations which have two or three but missing one or two. So, for example, you might have an organization which has strong processes and which has good people, but the culture is not supportive of risk management. People don't really believe in it, and so we don't apply it. Or you might have good people who are trying very hard to apply risk management within a supportive culture, but the processes are weak. And so the processes don't support them, and they can't do effective risk management because they don't have good processes. So you can see how all four things together are needed to support risk management maturity and to build that effective capability. So the first thing is to build maturity, to grow in our ability to understand and manage risk effectively. But then you used an interesting question, an interesting word in your question, which is how can that be sustained? It is important that we maintain our maturity. The world is changing. We have a lot of volatility in the environment in which we're executing our businesses. There's more competition, there's more regulation, there's more globalization, there's changes in the political environment. All sorts of things around our organizations are changing. And so if we have a level of maturity which allows us to manage risk effectively today, and we stick at that particular level of maturity, and if the outside environment changes, then we'll find that our existing level of maturity is not good enough. So you have to sustain it. You have to keep developing, keep working at your ability to manage risk. And that means that we need to keep building our risk management culture, reinforcing the culture, making sure that everybody in the organization, from senior management right the way through to the workforce, has that shared understanding of the value of risk, of why it's important, of why we need to do it. So sustain and reinforce the culture. Processes need to be updated. Processes get out of date, they're no longer applicable, maybe there's too much bureaucracy, perhaps we can sharpen the process, streamline it. So processes need to be reviewed and refined as time goes on. Experience needs to be sustained. If you have a really strong workforce with good risk management skills, and then you don't do any risk training for 5 years or 10 years, people will leave the company, new people will arrive, and they won't necessarily have the same skills. You need to refresh your experience levels. And application always needs to be have attention paid to that, so that we're making sure we apply risk management in all of those areas where it can bring benefit. So to sustain risk maturity, we need to reinforce the culture, we need to review and refresh our processes, we need to make sure that we keep the levels of risk training and risk understanding high as people pass through the organization. And we need to make sure that we're applying it in all of the areas where it could be useful. And then our maturity can grow with the challenges of our business, rather than saying, we've got risk management sorted, we'll stick at this level, and that will do forever. The world changes, and we suddenly find we can't manage the risks in the way that we should.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. Now we understand that for organizations to be mature in terms of risk management, we need to have all these four contributors that you have mentioned.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.